Hey there, everyone. I'm James Milan. Welcome to Talk of the Town. In this special episode, I would say, I have three guests here at the table with me, and the reason why we are here is this book right here. As you can tell, it's called The Goats of Goodwin Hill, and where's Goodwin Hill, you might wonder? It happens to be in Lexington. Is it in the rural part of Lexington, such as it is? For these goats who live on Goodwin Hill can see the Lexington Green, let's just say, for the right vantage points in their yard. I am joined by two of the authors of the book, or the named authors of the book, because you have to work a little bit harder to see Evelyn's name, but she's responsible for a lot of the illustrations here. So, Halé Sofia Schatz is right next to me, and she is, for all readers of the book, she is the goatherd, as referred to often in the book, and the impetus and catalyst for this entire project. Next to her is her co-author, Danny Overton, and Evelyn Kemp, excuse me, is at the end. I almost called you Evelyn Schatz, sorry. So I want to, first of all, just thank all three of you for being here and for bringing this book to our attention and this project to our attention. What I would like to do is just have you start, Halé, by just giving us a general sense of what the origins of what you do with the goats is, and or what the origins are, excuse me. And then I would like to hear just briefly from Danny and Evelyn as well about how you guys got involved. And then after that, we're going to start to dig into a lot of the nitty-gritty, so to speak, and there's a lot of that in terms of what you have meant to the goats and what they have meant to you. So, well, get us going.
This started about 18 years ago, and I really had an inner need to make my own cheese. This then led me to goats, because goat cheese is digestible for my body as well as my husband, so I was going to stay with goats, but we lived in Lexington Center. It started a whole project and an intensity of exploring how I could have goats in Lexington Center. Long story short, we've been there for 18 years. We're fully permitted. I do my own yogurt and cheese. I originally started this for myself because I was working internationally, teaching and training all over the world, and I needed to come home and just be quiet and not have to deal with anything. So I got goats, right? But I wanted to make my own cheese. That was a crucial piece. And the project was for myself. I hadn't thought about, my kids were already grown, didn't have grandkids then. It was just a project for my own personal need to have solace, quiet, nature, connection to animals. Animals are important to me, but the milk was the most important to me. Mm-hmm. So that's how it started. And then
I first saw the goats at a kind of volunteer event where different groups of people were helping remove some invasive species, which was at the time we were doing garlic mustard weed. And I saw the goats and I just couldn't take my eyes off of them. I followed Halé and the goats the whole time.
How old were you at that time?
I was 10 years old.
Okay.
And I just would not stop asking questions. And finally, at the end, Halé asked me if I wanted to come visit the goat yard. And I very excitedly said yes. And then I just kind of never left, really.
Well, I want to follow up, but I will ask Evelyn to tell us your story first.
Yeah, I had a friend who met Halé at the pasture at Key as a farm, which is where the goats go, every day, every afternoon, and she and her dad met you. And then you mentioned that you had some local kids sometimes help out with the barns and with the animals in the garden, and you invited Sophie, who invited me, and I've been there ever since. It was a great time being outside and with the animals and the community.
how old were you?
I was 11.
Right.
Yeah.
That seems to be right. I find that most children who are drawn to the goats, and I've never, I don't say anything to anybody about it really, except people find me because we're in public places. So, but that 11 age, I find it to be a crucial one in terms of humans connecting to animals and being able to have a certain level of communication and respect that needs to be developed for us mostly than anybody else. But that age.
Yeah, I want to explore that a little bit too. And Danny, I'll start with you. Just asking for you to cast your own mind back to your 10-year-old self. And you were saying that you couldn't take your eyes off them, and you were really drawn to following them around. But where were you at, as a young person at that time yourself? Were you drawn to animals already? Was this a surprise to you? Just tell us a little bit about how that happened.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it wasn't a surprise at all. Ever since I was able to express interest in things by pointing, I've been interested in animals. There are stories of me like crawling up to fences and sticking my face into little piglets' faces and like trying to pick up chickens and having them flap away. And so at 10 years old, it was also around the time I started working with horses. And so it just kind of came naturally to see these animals and want to know more.
And Evelyn, were you drawn? I asked you before we went on air about your own, pets, and you said you've grown up with cats, et cetera. But what kind of, attraction? I don't expect it was the same kind of thing as for Danny. But tell us about, what you can remember of your first.
I mean, I
impressions.
similarly, was also drawn to animals, and I don't know, trying to be on farms and be outside with them. And I thought that this was a wonderful place to do that in Arlington. I mean, I was sometimes at Habitat in Belmont as a kid, and then also later as I continued to work with the goats. And there aren't so many places around here where you can be with the animals like that, where they live.
Yeah, I have to say that the book is a compendium in a lot of ways of stories of all of the three people here at the table, but also of others kind of similarly situated, especially in terms of people coming in and spending years, young people coming in and spending years at the yard, again, giving and taking seemingly in equal measure with the goats. Halé, I'm struck by the fact that you said you don't advertise this, you don't try and find anybody to come and join you necessarily. It all has happened quite organically. Can you tell us about that? Because that's unusual.
I made it very clear to myself in the very beginning that because this was for my own enjoyment and reflection and contemporary and communication time with animals, which in general are a little bit more peaceful, especially our lives have gone in different directions in the human world. That level of connecting to animals for me has allowed a certain sense of focus. And so what I have seen over these last 18 years of kids staying for 10, 12 years in the yard, every Saturday morning at 8:30, rain or shine. We've had a few cancellations for snow or something over the years, but honestly, it's rain or shine, and it's fine if you don't come. There isn't anything that you have to come. No one has to come.
Right. If nobody came, you'd still be able to take care of the goats.
So my level of focus and how I feel strongly about it and why I feel strong about it is written a little bit in the book, so people can read it from that perspective. But I think that focus really helped young people to be able to connect to something that they already had a general interest in, animals. But because we were so purposeful in the activities, meaning the chores, we clean the manure, from the stalls, put water out, make sure it's the right thing, make sure the forage is out correctly, clean and rake the areas, basically clean up in general the stalls and the barn area every Saturday morning. It takes about an hour and a half. These kids, as I've said, I think there's 10 or 12 kids listed in there. All of them have been around for 10 or 12 years. That's a lot of kids to be around. So I feel like I'm kind of their extension. I'm the grandmother kind of, in this whole thing. And the goats are still their family. Mm-hmm. But that focus and the discipline and the steadiness and the commitment that I had for it, allowed them to enter and be held in this in a really strong way, and then they've made their own personal connections to each goat, who has, of course, personality. Each goat is completely different. I mean, people say, oh, do they have names?
Yeah, I do. What I would like to know, I want to ask you, but I'm going to wait for a little bit about the naming process, if there is one.
There is one.
And I'll be psyched to hear about that. But let me ask you guys. So I taught high school for 25 years, and I knew my students quite well. It was a very small school, so we were all we knew each other well. And I saw a lot of variations between how enthusiastic they could be about something on a Saturday morning, just from 9th grade to 12th grade. And I can imagine that, you know, if you're starting at 10 and you're going all the way to 18 before you go off to college, that there must have been, well, you tell me, how was it for you? Was there periods of time when you had to drag yourself there, when you felt obligated to do it, or was it always, oh good, I get to go hang out, you know?
I remember many times when I was running late, but never did I feel that like, oh, this is too much in the morning, I don't want to go. It was exciting. I got to ride my bike there. There was an independent sort of thing with that when I was a kid, when I was like 11, 12, 13, that I could just go by myself on the Minuteman path. And yeah, I always look forward to it.
Even all the way through high school, as you know, other distractions would come into your lives and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, especially then we had the pandemic, and then this became a wonderful way to have community and structure and all of those things. Yeah.
And how about for you, Danny?
Yeah, similarly, there was never a time when I didn't want to come to the yard. There's something very meditative about the work. And when that is juxtaposed with the chaos of life as, you know, an adolescent, it really gave me these moments of peace throughout the weeks that I really looked forward to. That, and also the goats were and are like friends to me. As we were saying, they have their own distinct personalities, and we have different relationships with each of them. But ultimately, they're our friends, and we want to go hang out with them. Right,
just like hanging out with your friends. So let me ask you on that kind of on that note. You were there with the goats. The goats were reliably going to be there when you got there, but you were also there with some kind of variety of other peers, of other kids your approximate ages, who this was the thing that brought you together, I think, with them, right? These were not kids that you necessarily knew. Outside of that, how did that part go for you guys? In other words, you're coming together with people somewhat randomly, with a clear common interest. But how did you find just working with the other students who you worked with?
Yeah, I mean, I think it really went very smoothly, at least to my memory. I was kind of the first one who came and stayed, and then each person who joined, like, the goats attract a certain type of person where we all kind of get along with each other. There's no one who shows up and we're like, that person. And so we get along in that regard in terms of compatibility, but also we would work together really well in terms of the person who'd been there longest. Me would help guide the others, but also we would work collaboratively. It's not like I was in charge or anything, but since I had
hierarchy, but
since I had the most experience, the others would ask me questions. If I didn't know, I would ask Halé. And it was just always a smooth collaborative process that kind of taught working together and leadership hand in hand.
That's great. And Evelyn, you had mentioned that your friend Sophie was the one who brought you into, got you into the circle, but then sounds like you stayed with it and she might have dropped off or something like that.
Yes.
How was this experience with the other humans that you were with during the time for you?
It was all, it was very nice and pretty much as Danny described. I mean, I remember a lot of being taught in the barns, and with a lot of the work that we had to do was from you and from Anya, as well as Halé, of course. And yeah, we all kind of came together through the work. There haven't been so many people that are like the same age at one time. There's always like, there are a few younger kids that are just learning, and that's different, of course. And then the people that are in this similar group, I feel like we've become pretty good friends. And yeah, I don't know, it was a great way to like work together in a first time where I had this experience to like, this is work that is for you to do outside of the house, and you're doing something and you're working in this ecosystem, and I thought that that was great and very exciting.
Yeah, I was really struck by reading in the book, and I'm curious about just how much this was by design or so, and how much of it happened just organically. The fact that you had this variety between 11 and 12 or 13, something like that, and more senior kids who might be 17, 18, and that everybody kind of came, understood what their role was. There was a role for the younger kids, whether they're clearing out spider webs or whatever it was in the barn when you're doing the cleaning. How did that come about? Was that, did you think through that? Or
it's
no?
completely organic. The beauty of the goat yard is that you can't do anything that's not authentic coming out of there, because they are so much who they are in center all the time. There isn't any wishy-washy or any major extremes. There are cycles, you know, the females have cycles and the males have, there are cycles I have to be patient and be aware of, but in general, the goat world is very sane, shall I say.
Yeah, and very consistent.
And very consistent. They like being consistent. They like regularity. They like discipline. They like boundaries. Because then they know where they stand. So because I had created that for the goats, it's very easy. I have my own 3 grown children, and being a grandparent. So kids need that sense of structure. And because I was very pointed about what needed to be done here, what needed to be done there. There's always a variety of different activities that had to be done. So we all came together as one, as you know, Evelyn and Danny are saying, did that get done? And someone would say, oh no, I haven't got to it yet. Oh, Tunde, can you go over there and get that done? So it was a certain sense that the work needed to get done for the goats because they needed clean bedding and fresh water and new forage. And then we all basically worked for the goats of sorts, you know, that there was less of us in the picture. Kids could always be social, and they got to be social. Some of them are really good friends still, which are really, it's wonderful to see. Feel very special about that. And the goats, like, you know, Danny just came over. He hasn't been over for a while, but he didn't recognize some of the young ones. But, you know, one of the young ones recognized him in some ways. I think he recognized you. I'm a little Milano. But so I think the sense of coming together for a focused perspective that's not ourselves, or in this situation, it's not even human. We're doing it for the goats. So that we don't have to say anything about that, but we all naturally know that we're there to work. We like being outside. All the kids who come like being outside. They all are all hands-on. They like to shuffle things and move things, and there's a certain structure about doing it. And in the end, you sometimes get fresh goat cheese out of it, or you certainly get lots of really good pets with the animals. And there's a nice social scene about it that we kept. Now, as those kids have grown, Danny's well out of college. Evelyn just graduated this past weekend from U of M.
UVM.
Right.
Yeah.
UVM, right. Yeah, got it.
Yeah. So these kids have grown on, but now we still have new 11 and 12 and 13-year-olds, and now they come with their parents. So we have different configurations happening now. What I love seeing, this is one of my favorite sites, is an 11 or 12-year-old who's been there for a while and knows if the hay needs to be taken out from one bag this way and put to another bag. Do we have a Canadian first cut hay, or do we have Vermont second cut hay, and which stall does it go in and how do we move it? And a 12-year-old is really good at it because he's been doing it for a while. And then comes an older person who's a grandparent or someone in the middle age group who hasn't done some of these things before. And then the 12-year-old is teaching the older person. I like that balance
Yeah.
a lot.
Again, as Danny was saying, it wasn't about him being authoritarian or anything like that.
Exactly.
He just knew from experience, and so people earn that right over time,
Exactly.
and then therefore are accorded that kind of role. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It sounds like a great community. I will say this. We are living in 2026, so it's hard for me just to accept it's all kumbaya. And so I just want to ask, like, what's the hard stuff? What was there anything that wasn't fun about this? Was there anything that you had to work through, or that was a challenge that was tough to take on? And if there wasn't, that's fine, but.
Yeah, I don't think for me there were really challenges in the goat yard. I certainly, had challenges in my personal life, but the goats made it better. And so, of course, I always really looked forward to coming. And yeah, I think, it does sound all sunshine and roses, but sometimes it is sunshine and roses.
Sometimes that's real.
Sometimes that's real. Like, just the people have been wonderful. The goats have been wonderful. There's always things to learn. There are always, like, dynamics between certain goats that might need to be, like, helped with, or there's new forage and we need to make sure that it's the right type of, like, leaf, or we're not sure if the goats can eat it. But those are all just learning experiences, and we all value them.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I mean, there's problem solving, of course, so it isn't all perfect in that sense, but that doesn't make any of it less enjoyable. And yeah, I don't know, it's just wonderful how, like, constant it is. It really is kind of a separate world, and I don't mean separate as in distant, but everything keeps moving in the goat world. So if you're away and you come back, it's all there, and there's, like, a wonderful comfort in that.
Well, it really does sound like quite a haven. It just sounds very lovely, and I'm really happy to be able to share this with our audience, but also to find out more about it myself. So let's talk a little bit about the goats themselves, because as you guys have already alluded to, they are, each one of them, its own unique being. And I just want to kind of throw out a general question or general invitation just to tell a couple of stories about either, favorite goats or goat interactions or whatever you would like. And Evelyn, why don't we start with you?
Start with me. Let's see. I was told to tell a favorite goat story, or a story about a favorite goat, when we had the book event at the beginning, and I couldn't choose a favorite one, but I feel like it's so wonderful to see them all together as a group, and there are so many ways in which I've seen them have community between them, like different ways in which Lila, for instance, has, like, grown. Their personalities change as they have different experiences, just like people. Or when we have a death in the herd, we will see them mourn, and then the structure of the herd changes and they come together. I don't know. It's very interesting. Do you have a specific?
Yeah, I mean, some of my favorite moments at the yard have been when I was cleaning the barn, and Lycian, who has since passed, she would always spend time with me while I was cleaning. And it was like she was telling me, like, hey, be present with me. Like, don't just focus on cleaning. She would always, like, nudge me and, like, rub her head against my leg and beg me to scratch her. And, like, I couldn't resist that. Of course, sometimes I needed to usher her out of the way a little bit so I could change the shavings here or move the hay bag there. But I just really, really treasure those memories of, like, late middle school, early high school, cleaning the barns in the morning with Lycian.
Yeah, it seems like just, again, what I read in the book, as you were describing, Evelyn, there was the death of one of the most senior members, or one of the two, foundational goats, and you described how the others huddled around, kind of in some kind of ritual that we might understand or we might not, but that really resonated. Even for me, off the page, it resonated.
And taking that one step further, we had a number of burials. I think you both have been to a number of burials of baby goats for whatever reason, pregnancy, stillbirth. Things happen, and we have like a little graveyard in the back area there. But we've had all the children who've been part of that at that time. Most of them were really young. We took care of the animal, you know, buried it with respect. And there's a burial here for the elder goat. But we didn't put the deaths of the babies in. It's enough. We don't, and it's done softly, so no one has to worry that it's a hard edge at death. But I think that ritual of birth and death has been very important, because the death, yes, the babies sometimes die, and it happens. But we've also had the births. In fact, some of the deaths, literally a couple days later, we'd have a birth. I don't know if you were, I can't remember which one that was right off the top of my head, but the births are always an important one as well, where most children don't get to see too many births of kittens or dogs anymore. There isn't this kind of connection. And as the kids get older and the maturity rises and their interest level rise, it's very clear they immediately identify that they want to be at this particular goat's birth, whoever is giving birth that particular late winter, spring. And so what I always do is, well, we have to ask that particular goat to make sure that you are going to be accepted there. And if you want to do that, take the next few months. I've said this probably to both of you, right? Take the next few months to make sure you really establish a relationship with her, so she doesn't freak out that you're just going to show up, because that's an intimate space, even though most of us don't realize that that is for animals as well as for us. And to be at a birth is a real honor and an initiation. And I always felt like the kids who went through the births were initiated in goat world.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing, I mean, it's pretty special, isn't it?
It's a real like show of trust between goats and humans.
Yeah.
And another really of my favorite memories of the goat yard is written about actually in the book, the night that Anya and I spent in the barn taking care of the little baby.
Right, one of two goats, two little babies. Her brother was robust. She, Halé mentioned apparently several times she might not make it.
Right.
And you and your friend got your permission from your parents as quite young kids, right?
Yeah.
I remember I had a math test the next day, and it didn't matter to me at all.
But it was math. No. These are the kinds of things really that are great that you guys were able to not just experience for yourselves, but can now share with others through this book. And so let's get back to the book as a last, I want to make sure that we give it its due, which is, how did this idea come up, and how long did it take, and how hard or not was it to turn your experiences into something concrete that can be shared with a much wider audience?
Quick overview. It's probably taken 18 years because I document everything, and there's a lot of stories. And the beautiful thing about working with animals is that you begin to communicate. I think that's like one of the most profound, where we can communicate. We don't have to say anything, and we know exactly what we're saying. So I knew a lot of stories because I was so intimate with the animals in terms of every single day that would go by over these years. So certain animals really touched me, and I'd write down little quips of stories here and there. So I documented a lot of little stories as things happened. Certainly I work seasonally, so it's a seasonal book, winter, spring, summer, and fall. So the stories from the seasons come out. And the other piece of it is that this whole sense of working, the kids connecting to this, Danny has been also part of it in terms of all the photographs that we used to do way back when on my dining room table, collecting photographs for particular illustrations or some kind of inspiration, because a lot of these kids needed the inspiration to see the animals in process. Evelyn was one of them, where illustrations would just start coming out. She would just send, and this is way before the book happened. We have all these incredible illustrations that she started doing. I collected everything. I collected a lot connected to the goats and to the human kids. So Danny and I, maybe COVID, right?
I think so.
Right into COVID, out of COVID, we formalized it and said, should we write a book? Somewhere in there. I can't remember the exact timing.
That sounds about right to me.
Maybe 4 years-ish, 4 years-ish.
Yeah.
We've been working via phone, Vermont, Lexington. And and again, it does sound kumbaya, but it was incredible working together. We never really had any disagreement because it was, again, so focused on what's the best. I don't know if you feel this, but I feel this. I feel like I'm a voice for the goats of sorts, and I feel like Danny and Evelyn, of course, are really good assistants in that. So Danny was incredible in putting the words and some of the exclamations and all the levels of kind of the curiosity of the goats. I had a lot of context as to the stories that have happened. And I held those firmly as to what needed to go through for each season. So we did it every week, almost, except for periods of major dramas in either of our lives, for about 3-4 years. And we just kept going until we came to the end.
That is great. And Evelyn, I did want to mention that, I said at the outset that you can see Halé and Danny's names on the front, and you can see yours in the back, but it is attached to 11, and by my count, different illustrations in here. And I have to say, when you first said that we were talking earlier, and you're math and science and chemistry oriented, and I thought, oh wait, I thought she was an artist because of what I saw here. So just tell us about that. Did those illustrations come up over time? And you just kind of had them and were able to dip into that stock for the book, or?
Yeah, it's something that I've always enjoyed doing, and I haven't always had like a steady outlet for it other than just doing it when I can for my own enjoyment. I started doing them of the goats for the goats in Halé very early. The first illustration that I remember giving to you was of a Gian, so that was right when I got there.
When an animal died, especially an elder, I'd get an illustration, either from Test or some of the other ones.
I remember I did one as well, along with a poem, I think.
Yes, and I have poems and illustrations. The kids would make, and it was an incredible thing.
So they came up then as these stories were happening. Some of those portraits that Halé talked about are in there, like the one of Lissy and the one white goat is in that book. And yeah, it was really wonderful now to see those. I never expected, of course, that they would be compiled into anything. But from all of the years that I worked there as a kid, those are now in the book, which is nice.
And Danny, did the organization of the book, was that just something that you and Halé were able to work out together again, organically, harmoniously, et cetera, or?
I think so. I think we both share the kind of goat time and goat rhythm that we needed to turn this into what it is now. All of the decisions that we made more or less together and harmoniously, because it just felt like what needed to happen based on what had happened and what we wanted for the book. So it was really just a smooth process of shuffling things around and editing and lots of editing.
That's a book for you. So who is, as far as you guys are concerned, the main audience for this book? Who did you imagine as you were putting it together, and who would you ideally like to see reading and responding to it?
Kids who entered the goat yard at the ages that they did, 10, 11, 12, right in that age group, I think is a really good age group to understand perhaps a little bit more about animals through this book than they have already with either having a cat or a dog at home. But so many kids these days, like you guys said too, they don't have animals at home anymore. A lot of people are allergic and they don't have the premises to have this kind of thing. So connecting to animals, I think, is really an important thing for children during these years. Our level of connection to just media and our fingers only working a certain way needs to be looked at. So there's some balancing where our level of communication and understanding, certainly between our species, but also between interspecies. Because the beauty of the goat, which we haven't mentioned at all, is that it gives you a huge botany lesson.
Right.
pretty
again,
seriously, really quickly. Kids who don't know the difference between maple and oak, or adults, to be honest with you, who don't, learn quickly that there's one and the other. And these goats, they won't do a red maple, but they do the Norway maple. They're really specific. So that teaches us humans to be more clear about certainly what we're eating, but what we're taking in, shall we say.
I have to say that the idea that goats are at the center of this whole thing seems absolutely essential, in that what you were just saying about those botany lessons, right? The reason for that is you guys want to do whatever's best for the goats, whatever they like the most, whatever's safest for them, et cetera. And that attachment happens so quickly, it sounds like, that then for that to be the governing kind of ethos for how you do everything after that, and how you work together, how you spend your time, what you're doing. If you were doing that at home for, because your parents told you to or something, you might feel quite differently about it, right? So goats there seems to be something magical, at least in this particular context, about them, just as the animals that they are. I'm getting a lot of nods, but do you guys want to elaborate on that at all, or?
I mean, yeah, absolutely. And that's sort of, I don't know, a lens with which I see all of these things in nature. And when I notice trees outside, I'll be like, a lot of my friends don't know the names of certain trees, and I'll be like, this is this. And I'm like, oh, and the goats, they like that one, but they don't like this one as much. And they're like, we were thinking about this all the time.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know, it's a very fun, wonderful thing. And I feel like it makes you, I don't know, it sort of connects you to these things anywhere when you're outside, which is really wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, it really just gives you a wider perspective of the world in general. Like, humans generally have a very human-centric perspective, and when you learn to work with animals and understand their needs and their wants, it really opens up your world in a special way that I think a lot of people don't really get anymore.
Yeah. So that's why the book, because people aren't getting it, and not everyone's going to be able to come to my goat yard. This is a very special group that's happened over this 18 years, but if people want to, and it doesn't have to be goats, but they need to have a relationship over a period of time. It's not just a one-time shot at Drumlin Farm. It's not going to do it.
Right, it needs to be a relationship.
It needs to be a relationship.
That's clear, yeah.
And it needs to be that I care about you as much as I care about myself. Which I can say that they have that
These guys,
relationship
right,
with it. And I certainly know that I have that with my goats, I'm always thinking, it's a hot day today, make sure there's 3 buckets of water. I mean, that before I left, because that's on my mind.
Right, you get your water, they get their water.
Exactly, because I know I'm thirsty, so they'll be thirsty.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think that letting go of that, our ego, that it's just me, it's my little world, and it's my little world. This opens it up. You get to use your hands and heart.
All right. Well, let us remind people where you can get hold of the Goats of Goodwin Hill. And that is, first and foremost, the easiest place in the world and one of the greatest places in the world, your local library. So whether it's Lexington, Arlington, or any of the surrounding areas in the Minuteman system, you can certainly find the book at the library, and I'm sure that there will be other places in the future, but for now, sending folks to the library. Anywhere else we should be sending them?
Yes, you can also, there's,
you can
right
order
in
it on
the,
that.
you can order it online through the Goodwin Hill name. It's goodwinhillgoats.com. goodwinhillgoats.com. If you look up Goodwin Hill Goats, it'll all come up anyway, because there's a big website.
We've done that here at ACMi.
Yeah, it's a big website, and it's done in spring, summer, fall, and winter, as I said, and then we have these incredible illustrations that the kids have made.
All right, any last words from any of you?
Well, it's nice to share a little bit of the goat world into the human world, just so we can make a little bit of impact.
Absolutely. The sharing is wonderful.
Yeah.
I remember we started doing those journal entries a very long time ago before there was even talk of a book, but there was always the idea that there would be storytelling and sharing coming out of it. So it's wonderful. It's part of the community aspect.
Yeah, I have to say, it is a great story. It's just a plain old great story. And nothing that has happened in this 45 minutes of conversation that we've enjoyed makes me think otherwise. And clearly I can tell what kind of impact it has had for you two young folks and also for you. Because you would never have imagined that this is where you would have been led
Exactly.
to from your initial impulse.
Exactly.
And isn't this a great bounty to come from that?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
congratulations to you, to
Thank
all
you.
of you. I
you.
thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
I've
you.
been joined today by, starting on the far end, Evelyn Kemp, and then Danny Overton, and Halé Sofia Schatz is next to me, and together we want to thank them and also you for being here for this conversation. We hope you've enjoyed it. Again, find the book at the library if you would like, or order it for yourself. Thank you again to all, and I'm James Milan. This is Talk of the Town. We'll see you next time.
ACMi productions are only made possible with your support. Visit patreon.com/ACMi to learn how you can help.